I made a video in the past called Legendary Guitar Licks You Think Are Hard, but Aren't. And the overwhelming consensus was not only that I'm an amazing guitar player, it was a suggestion. Hey, now you should do the opposite. Make a list of songs that sound easy but are actually really difficult. And I was like,
oh man, now I have to try
to actually create some content. So that's what I'm going to do for you guys. I'm going to try, because these riffs demand all of my skills on the guitar, and they will demand all of yours if you've never tried them before. I have a few different iconic guitar riffs and licks, and then I have something at the end that I think is actually the most difficult thing to do on the guitar, bar none, and it is also something that sounds the easiest to do. Stay tuned.
Pun intended.
So we're gonna get started right away with, I think, the first lick that comes to mind. Whether or not it necessarily sounds easy, it sounds really cool, but it doesn't sound as hard as it really is. And that is Snow, Hey-O by Red Hot Chili Peppers. So the trick with this song is not only the finger dexterity you have to sort of do this jungle gym movement from triad to triad, it is the finesse that you have in the picking hand. I alternate pick this, but I don't know if John Frusciante alternate picked it. That's just what works for me, so my method may not be the best way to do it, but that's what I do. The first way I would recommend learning this riff, because I do recommend learning it, I actually use this in my warm-up routine. It's a really great alternate picker warm-up and left hand warm-up exercise. So the first thing you would want to do is just figure out the chords, right? So we have G sharp minor, but it's just the triad, remember? And this triad has the fifth in the bass, so it is a second inversion triad. If you've never heard of triads, check out Guitar Super System, link down in the description, and you'll learn. So we have a G sharp minor triad, and then we have an E major triad, and then we have a B major triad, and then we have an F sharp major triad. Those last three were all root position triads. So all in all, and then on the second go around, it ends with an F sharp major triad, but it is in this inversion, so it has the third in the bass, so that would be the first inversion. And obviously a different string set. So just get that rhythm down. I like to get that pulse going so I can really feel the music, and then you can sort of add in these little whittly-dees, as they were. The real trick with this riff is not just the endurance it takes, but this pinky and ring finger cross jumping. It's like they are always forming an X, whether it is something like this where the ring finger is on top of the pinky, or something like this where the pinky is holding the heaviest string. So that's really the difficulty of this riff, which is why I encourage you to first work on the chords so you can get those changes. Because you won't be able to play the riff if you can't get your fingers to the right place fast enough. That goes for literally every guitar riff, but this one seems more notable than most. So moving on, let's take another clean riff that is intensely difficult on the fretting hand. The right hand, not so much, but this is going to be difficult for most of you, I would say, just because it actually is the one circumstance where it does help to have longer fingers and larger hands in general. It is the main riff to Every Breath You Take by The Police. And here's how it goes. Ow! So a bunch of add 9 chords. Specifically, this is a major add 9. This is the 9 here. One of my favorite chords. And then this is the killer right here, F sharp minor add 9. Ha! Just a beautiful chord, but see, here's actually, that is a perfect demonstration, because when you're going from this chord to this chord here, your tendency is to keep your same position. So I bar this chord with my ring finger on the 5th of the chord right here, and your tendency is to keep that shape to come down here, but this is not going to work. You gotta change to use your middle finger for the 5th of the chord, because it is just too long of a stretch. So that way you can actually get these strings to ring together. And then what comes after that is actually sort of a tongue twister, especially after you've gone through the stress of playing those 2 chords. You have to come up here and do this little twinkle toes type move. And that seems simple enough, but like I said, coming from these chords and then coming up here to do a different picking rhythm is just very much a mind bender. So that is what makes this riff that is seemingly just like bing, 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 bing. It just seems really easy, but it is not really easy. It's really hard, and you can rewind it if you want to see me play it again, because ow, I don't want to hurt my hand anymore. I'm not used to playing that riff enough, so go back and get your stretch on. All right, new guitar, because we're getting a little dirty, and this is, maybe you'll disagree with me on this one. Maybe it's not difficult, but I just remember this was one of the harder riffs that I learned in my earlier days, and it's sort of like a deceptively challenging one for the context of the band it is written with, by. It is the bridge section of Back in Black by AC/DC. So there's a little nuance of that guitar riff that you may or may not interpret the same way as me. You may play it straight like this. But the way I like to play it, and this is just an adaptation, but it's like the way that I hear it, the way I perceive the riff, is this like super fast pull off. So it's like, whether or not I'm making it harder on myself, it's still a difficult riff, whichever way you spin it. So I think the difficulty comes from this ascending, climbing bass, because your tendency is to stick around that 2nd fret, and as a result, it ends up giving you that super stretch. You can get fancier with it, like, but either way, it's a difficult little riff, and obviously the rest of the song, which is also really easy sounding and actually is, that bridge section can really throw you off. So I think the cooler way to do it, as I mentioned, is to do a little pull off. Either way, sounds easy, isn't that easy. All right, another lick from my childhood that has always been a tongue twister for me, finger twister. It is the little lick that happens in the beginning of For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica, and it sounds like this. That was a real long time coming when I first was learning how to like play lead stuff on guitar. That was such a confusing lick for me because I was used to playing scales linearly, like up and down the scale. There was no separation of the intervals. It was just like... But what this lick introduced to me was the concept of taking intervals that were right next to your fingers, but not in the sort of muscle memory way that you're used to playing scales. So something like this. So that was a real groundbreaking thing for my own guitar playing. And the lick itself is still one that is tricky for me because it's, like I said, it's a confusing finger twisting lick that breaks the tendency that you want to do. So that's why I think it's a really simple sounding lick that is actually much harder than it is, because you want to do something else, but the lick commands you not to do that. And you also notice there is some palm muting happening in there because the lick, it is important to have each note its own separate entity, and it's also important to alternate pick it as opposed to do any hammer-ons or pull-offs. Otherwise the lick sort of loses its iconic nature. So alternate picked, palm mute it heavy, so that way each one is kind of real staccato and you'll have it down. So that brings us to the most difficult thing possible on the guitar, the hardest thing for a guitar player to do. And here it is. You ready? Sounds really easy. Sounds so easy that anyone could do it, even if they've never picked up the guitar in their life. But for guitar players, this is the hardest thing to play. Nothing. Sitting on a groove, bass player and drummer jamming out, singers singing something, harmonica players going bloop, bloop, bloop. Keyboard players riffing, chin, 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 chin. Guitar player, just lean back. That is so hard to do, because all we want to do is this. Yep, that's it. I wouldn't consider that a trolling, would you? Would you? Oh, whatever. Anyways, those are the most difficult guitar riffs, legendary ones, that I can think of that sound very simple. Why don't you leave me a comment in the comment section letting us know other very, very difficult guitar riffs that actually sound simple. And go check out the other video, easy guitar riffs that sound really hard. And until next time, keep shredding.